Shut up and sit down.
I'm Diego Leal. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology at the University of South Carolina. I teach ethnic and race relations. I teach introduction to social problems. I teach statistics also. And at the graduate level, I teach statistics, graduate statistics, and social network analysis. I try to study migration, international migration. That's, I would say, one of my main areas. I also study organizations, and I also study social networks. Migration, that started actually back home. I'm originally from Bogota, Colombia, South America, not Colombia, South Carolina. So basically what happened there is that when I was a teenager, my aunt migrated to the United States to do something like what we will call today an au pair kind of program, like a nanny, basically. And then it got me super interested in the topic because she migrated here. And then she was basically working 24/7. There was no clear-cut like time to have her own space and rest. It was like a 24/7 job, including Sundays. She only had like an afternoon every 2 weeks, I think, free. So I remember hearing all these stories over the phone about what was going on and how the United States was. And that got me interested. And then when I came to grad school here, I was doing research on gender and migration, which was that specifically, how these women migrate, why they do that. And there is a concept there that is called global care chains. That basically means that usually what happens is that you have women in the global north, like the United States, a very rich country. The society basically says, hey, you should take care of the kids. There are these social norms that are very pervasive. And these women also have to work outside home. So they go outside home, but they need someone to take care of their kids. So they hire someone usually from the global south, like my aunt, right? So she comes here, but then again, society there has these very strong norms, gender norms. And then someone has to take care of her kids. So who took care of her kids? My mom. And that's like a chain that goes one woman after the other. But the issue with this is that the kind of money that women in the global north earn is not the same amount of money that they will pay to their nannies here. So basically the work devaluates as you go down the chain. And in the end, sometimes women in the global south, they don't get paid. Like my mom, for example, she was doing that basically for free. And those inequalities to me are really interesting. In terms of migration, I did a study on the global migration, well, not global, I guess, continental migration of women in Asia. We were able to estimate migration flows, that those data didn't exist before. Then we were able to map those flows, and then we saw different trends. We saw women migrating because of new job opportunities in different kind of industries, from like legal positions all the way to what we call entertainment jobs, basically prostitution, gambling, and all those different things. And we were able to map those flows. That was really interesting. Practical implications right now, I would say, since again, I'm doing this estimation of migration flows, there is a current crisis going on in South America, Colombian migrants and Venezuelan migrants. Basically what happened there is that during the 20th century, between 1950 and 1990s, basically, Colombians were migrating to Venezuela a lot. Millions, basically, were migrating there. Then they established themselves there and everything was okay. In that context, Venezuela was a very prosperous country, a very strong petroleum and gas industry. Then by the end of the 20th century, there was a huge economic crisis that then became a political crisis. Hugo Chavez was elected in that context. Fast forward today, there is a huge economic crisis now in Venezuela. And now all these Venezuelans are migrating back to Colombia. And some of Colombians that migrated back in the day are returning. So part of my research, and I have done this in a couple of interviews down there, is trying to tell people that, yes, Venezuelan migrants are migrating to Colombia right now. But we did that same thing some decades before. So far, the Colombian government and Colombian society have been able to manage the situation. There is not a crisis, I would say. There is some xenophobia rising, but it's not widespread. And we're trying our best to make this work. So part of my research is to bring that historical perspective. Since the data were not available, I provide those data and say, look at this huge flow of Colombians migrating there. They were able to take all these Colombians back in the day, so we should reciprocate. And I think some people have listened to that message. That would be a practical implication. Well, okay, that's a big one. So how has been my experience with migration? Many different things. I can tell you many different things about that. First, race would be probably one of the main things. When I was in my home country, race was not as prominent for me as it was here. It is here. It is really prominent. So basically what happens in my experience and some of my friends' experiences too, is that you migrate and then you become this new subject, you racialized subject. You realize that color is very important and you have to be somewhere in that racial line, right? Sometimes you are, sometimes you're not, but that really becomes something very prominent for you. And then you start to look at your home society in a different way. Like, oh, maybe I was not aware of these very different dynamics here. And then I look back and then I see that those dynamics are also playing out there in slightly different ways, but race is also very prominent. So that for me was a really big change. When migrants arrive to a new destination country, people in that destination country react in different ways. The classic reaction is that basically they are going to take our jobs, right? And research has demonstrated that that's actually usually not an issue. The jobs that migrants take are jobs that usually natives are not willing to take. And because of that, actually that enriches destination societies. That was true in the context of Venezuela. They needed lots of engineers, for example, but they also needed housemates, and Colombians provided those kind of jobs. That is also true in the United States. When the United States, for example, in the mid-20th century needed people to work on the fields because European migrants were aging and no one was taking care of that, specifically in the Northeast, Puerto Ricans migrated there and took care of those jobs. Migration is actually very, very good for countries, economically and politically speaking. They diversify societies, and when that happens, societies usually benefit.